Well, hello there. Washington has been busy, specifically the House of Representatives. They passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It squeaked through with a 217 to 212 vote. This is a massive, over 1,000-page document. It's a cornerstone of President Trump's domestic agenda. Think of it as a giant combo meal with tax policy and social program reforms. A major headline item is making the 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent. It also introduces changes to taxes, government support programs, and energy policies. Now, just because the House passed, it doesn't mean it's law tomorrow. The bill now moves to the Senate. Speaker Mike Johnson aimed to get this bill through the House by Memorial Day. This urgency is tied to the looming U.S. debt ceiling issue. Wrapped up in these policy changes is a provision to raise the debt limit by $4 to $5 trillion. Let's talk about money and how this bill might affect it through taxes. The centerpiece is making the 2017 tax cuts permanent. The total package is estimated at $3.8 trillion over 10 years. The bill also raises the SALT deduction cap to $40,000. For families, the $2,000 child tax credit becomes permanent. Temporary tax breaks include no federal income taxes on overtime pay. Qualified tip income is also exempt from income tax through 2028. Now let's shift gears to Medicaid and SNAP, often known as food stamps. This bill proposes significant changes, primarily in the form of funding cuts and new work requirements. The plan aims to cut around $1 trillion from Medicaid and SNAP over the next decade. Federal food aid alone is looking at nearly $300 billion in reductions. A big part of these changes involves stricter work requirements. For Medicaid, childless adults who don't have disabilities would need to work at least 80 hours per month. Similarly, for SNAP, new work requirements are being introduced for able-bodied enrollees without dependents. The potential impact could be widespread. These new rules and funding cuts could result in as many as 14 million people losing their Medicaid health coverage. For SNAP, around 3 million households could lose their food assistance. Beyond work requirements, there are also administrative changes proposed for Medicaid. Enrollment periods would shift from being annual to every 6 months. For SNAP, states would be required to cover a larger share of the costs. Let's turn our attention to how this bill could affect students, savers, and older Americans. The federal student loan system faces a major overhaul, including $330 billion in cuts. Subsidized federal student loans would be eliminated. Repayment terms would extend to 30 years. New repayment plans would replace existing options. Pell Grant eligibility would require 30 credit hours per year. Savers age 65 plus could claim an additional $4,000 deduction. HSAs would expand to cover sports and fitness expenses. Annual HSA contribution limits would double. Trump accounts for child savings would start with a $1,000 federal deposit. Parents could contribute up to $5,000 annually. A new tax deduction for interest on U.S. assembled auto loans would be created. The bill also takes aim at energy policy, particularly incentives for green technology. Tax credits for electric vehicles and energy-efficient home improvements would expire after 2025. Credits for renewable energy sources like solar and wind power are also set to be phased out. The bill allocates significant funding towards border security. It proposes $46.5 billion for President Trump's border wall project. An additional $5 billion is earmarked for customs and border protection facilities. $6 billion is designated for hiring more border agents and officers. The bill also introduces new fees for certain immigration services. For example, a $1,000 fee for asylum applications and a $550 fee for renewing work authorizations. It's important to remember that this bill, as passed by the House, is not the final word. The Senate is now gearing up to make its own changes. Key Republican senators have voiced concerns about various aspects, including the overall level of spending reductions. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act proposes sweeping changes that could touch nearly every American's financial life. Stay informed. Subscribe, like, share, and comment to keep up with the latest updates.